Hello, everyone. Super excited to be back with Wilda Corner, where we are going to talk about how to unleash your potential to be a leader. I feel that leadership really is a journey. It doesn't require a title. And I feel that we all, in no matter what stage we are all on our leadership journey. And I'm so excited to really bring these kind of topics to forefront through this LinkedIn Live. What a great platform, really, truly, LinkedIn Live is that we can have real conversation, open conversations, so we can discuss the issues we don't actually get to discuss in general in our real life. Again, I've spent 30 years in this career, uh, spending time from being a programmer to engagement manager, project manager, to really running the company and be a CEO. And the journey was not easy, and journey was not a straight line. It's a lot of ups and downs, as you all probably know. And I'm really excited to really bring this topic and have a real conversation with a dear friend, a Wilda member, and someone who I've actually had these conversations before. And I want to introduce you to Tina Fincioni, who is the EVP, Digital Transformation and Optimization at MasterCard. Tina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Asha. How are you?
Good, good. We're doing good. And Tina, you and I spoke about this topic several times. And I think leadership is something which, if you are in a data and AI field, in a technology field, or doesn't matter which field you're in, I think leadership is a trait that you can start developing early on in your career and can continue developing even if you are a C-suite. So I want to spend some time talking a little bit about both our journeys from the early on. I remember starting my career as a programmer. I went to school to be a computer science engineer. I started my career as a programmer. But what I realized early on that I had to be open. Even I remember when I was even looking for my first job, I had to be a hustler. I couldn't really just apply to one job and be happy with it. Really be proactive. I felt it was really, really important when I got my first job. And in your 20s, I think it's really about building your skills and really spending time on harnessing and excelling in the skill which you're spending. I remember working, long hours. And listen, I got married early, had kids early, so I actually had a family in my early 20s. And I remember managing and juggling my family and work while I was building my career and actually creating a brand for myself in the business. It was not easy. But I think I would say that what worked for me early on in my career was the hard work. I mean, I think it's important to have the intelligence and have the education and be proactive, but also making sure you do give time to learn and excel in whatever field you are in. And I'm going to pass it on to you. Tell me, what was your early on in your career? What were the lessons you learned in your career early on? And what would you want to share with the audience here?
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about that. So a little bit of history background about myself. So I grew up in Belgium. So I was born and raised in Belgium, born in Bruges, actually, for those who know where that is. As part of a very hardworking family. You see, my parents were small business owners, and on my father's side of the family, I'm actually one of the few employees, let's say, because the majority of my family members on my father's side are actually all on their small business. But what I learned from that is that hard working is fine and can be fun. Like my parents generally always made sure they had fun, right? So, and they loved and liked what they were doing, and they were proud of what they were achieving as the company was growing, right? So I, as a child growing up, I had to help a lot in the company as well. So the family was delivering food to hotels, restaurants, so very hard working and very busy hours, and I would help. She would join the cars, you see, to help deliver the food. So, but it was fun. Like I enjoyed it. So that is something that I took away with me for throughout my career. Always making sure that I was enjoying what I was doing. See, having that little passion in myself that I could exploit. Then something else about me. Oh, yeah, I went to college in Belgium, so I studied commercial engineering. At the time, you see, when I had to pick what I wanted to study post high school, I didn't really know yet what I wanted to do, and that was okay. Right? You don't have to know, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be this, right? It was okay, but I picked a direction that was challenging, but still very open-minded. So I became a commercial engineer that allowed me to then, throughout my studies, still think about what I wanted to do. Once I graduated, still didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I went to work. My first job was actually at PwC. PwC, where I went to do financial audit. And that was actually a smart idea because it allowed me to get to know many different companies. And then after 2.5 years, I decided to join MasterCard. And I've been with MasterCard ever since. So I'm now 17 years and counting already. So It is never planned that from the beginning. But again, to what I said earlier, MasterCard has given me a lot of opportunities. I've never been bored, always made sure that I had fun. I have great colleagues and which have become friends over time as well. So it is always felt like I was challenged and always, could continue to grow. And some other things that happened throughout the years is that, I had my kids just like you whilst doing my career, whilst building my career. We moved to the United States 4.5 years ago. It was a big change. So, and that's also something I would say a big lesson is that, and you can see that there's different types of people. It's embrace the change, make the best out of it, find the opportunity in the challenge is something that I always try to do as well. Like a change isn't necessarily a bad thing, even if it can be a really tough one. Like out of every challenge, something good can come. And that's also something that I always try to look for. Like if something hard hits us, okay, how can we turn this around, right? How can we make something better out of this? Yeah.
You know, you spoke about your parents and how when they were working so hard, but they made it fun, and you saw that happen in, at home. And I always say sometimes, everybody who's listening, they may or may not have had experienced that in their childhood, but I always say that you can take either good or bad, right? You can something good happen in your childhood, you take that, or something bad happen and you say, I'll never do that again. And I think we all can learn from our surroundings. And I would say that for me, it was similar. My mom worked really, really hard, and I saw her start a business, work a number of hours. I was always around her, so I saw how she operated the business. And I think somehow it rubs in, that you have to hustle in life to get something and get somewhere. So I think subconsciously, I learned that in my early days, unconsciously, I learned that to be a hustler and always try to, keep aspiring for more in life. If it's personally, intellectually, professionally, I think having that growth mindset is so critical to your growth. And I think we live in the world of data and AI where curiosity, when we talk about data science, it's really the field of curiosity. And the jobs, they say AI is going to change, X number of jobs will be gone, but there are wide number of jobs that will be produced and created. And I think we are at that stage of humanity where curiosity, creativity, innovation will be paid a lot more than doing the mundane jobs. So I feel that, what lessons you learned in your career and I learned in my career, those are the lessons that help you become better leader. And I think leadership is such an interesting topic.
Yeah, no, cannot agree more. And it's and how do you motivate, like finding ways to motivate people in your teams, you see, people you're working with, to indeed leverage that, dig into their own curiosity, right? To motivate them to continue learning, think about new ways of doing business. Like you mentioned AI, you see, how can we leverage it? How can we scale our solutions faster because of it? How can we make our solutions smarter because of it and have more impact? So it is, and now we're talking about AI. AI is a hot topic, but it's constant, right? And I feel the technological changes are so rapidly, it's sometimes hard to keep up. I
Yeah.
find. And now one thing that I learned as a leader is that you don't have to know everything yourself, right? But surround yourself with people in your teams. And it's okay if they know it better than you, right? So that's fine. You can't know everything yourself. And so I try to attract people or motivate a team to learn about these things, so that together, you see, we can all tap into our joint innovation, but we do have also a little bit of skills in house to figure out what we can do with these innovations and technologies.
I love what you said about leadership is about it's not everything you need to know. It's about surrounding yourself with the right people and motivating others to get on your vision, your passion, what you're really passionate about. And I think number one thing, I would say that from when I was building my skills and to when I moved into a manager, for me, actually, it was a very interesting challenge because I always thought, I know it so well, I can do it so well. Why should I give it to somebody else? I can do it all. And what happens is that when you're in that phase, and even if you get a title of a manager or a project lead or a director, but if you sit on that mindset where I can do it all, then what happens? You burn yourself, and then you have a team who's not going to progress. And so I remember the transition was to identify what is strong in the people who are who are on your team and become truly a coach for your team members. When I would get frustrated with my team members and say, why can't they do their job well? Or, why can't they be at my level? And they're not at your level because, they're learning, they're growing. A saying from Einstein, which I really love, is that you can't teach a fish to climb a tree. And so if they have different skills than you do, you might be a monkey and you can climb the tree, but fish knows how to swim really well. So understand what the strength of the people is, cherish that and appreciate that, and help them coach. So if they make a mistake, turn that into a teaching moment. Instead of getting upset or frustrated, how can you turn that into a teaching moment and become a coach, a teacher, to make sure that your team is learning and growing? And I think for me, that was a pivotal change when I realized, oh my God, I can be a teacher, a coach for my team and be their cheerleader and not get frustrated and not worry about taking everything on and start delegating. It was a big change. What was the big change when you became from this A-player, excellent performer to a manager where you had now all these people reporting to you?
Yeah, no, honestly, no, that's what you just described was a big learning for me as well, right? Like just like you, I was probably just like you, an excellent individual contributor, right? And then having that first direct report, or maybe two, that was still pretty easy. But then when that suddenly became like 15, 20, then it's like, oh, wow, that's when I hit a wall for a moment. And I made all the beginner mistakes. It made all of them. So trying to indeed redo the work because it wasn't good enough, completely killing the motivation of the people in the team, especially when it's not always necessary. But if it's good enough, it's good enough, right? That's also something I learned. Like I was a bit of a perfectionist in the beginning, and then expecting that same from my team, but realizing, and I like quoting a colleague of mine, he always says, great is the enemy of good.
Yes.
And it takes way too long, right? So that is the beginner mistake that I made. But then also to a certain extent, being overprotective of my team, meaning trying to focus so hard on their work-life balance that I wasn't noticing that some of them really had an urge and a drive to grow fast, and I was limiting their potential.
Yeah.
And so now I try to make sure that I tell people, look, I'll give you whatever it is you want, what I think you can do, but it's up to you to tell me if it's too much. And I regularly check in and ask, but at least to allow those that want to grow fast to flourish, right? And who want to do more. So when people ask, I try to accommodate that. So those were the beginner mistakes, but it definitely was a tough one because you then also suddenly deal with team dynamics. You see that psychology around it. And I remember that was still in Europe where the dynamics were negative, and we realized after a certain time that it was just because how people were sitting. Like it was the young ones were sitting in one area and then the older ones were sitting in another area, and they were gossiping about each other. So we just had to mix things up, and that helped, you see, changing and people understanding how, you see, what other people were working on, what they were dealing with. And so it was, dealing with team dynamics was something that took me by surprise. You see, like, oh my God, they don't like each other. How do I make them like each other? Right? Those kind of things, making sure we spend time on that. And that's something that I now try to pay attention to, and like regularly organizing moments outside of work, right? Or just a lunch together and things like that. It was a challenge during COVID, but now we've tried to bring that back into the team.
I love what you spoke. You kind of touched upon the culture you build as a leader is really important. And it's human nature, you know. Was it Sapient, the book? It talks about the human nature is to bond over gossip. You know, like people bond over talking about other people. And that's been going on for historically forever. And what I always have encouraged is, you know, sometimes I will say that I don't have time to talk about other people. I'm so busy that I need to keep moving ahead that I don't have time to talk about. And what I realize is that when things like that happen, my goal always has been in the culture saying, we won't talk about somebody if they're not in the room. So if you have an issue, you either resolve it or we'll talk about them when they're in the room. So we won't talk about anyone. So a lot of times what happens is that you'll find there are two employees who want to be your favorite, and they'll keep coming to you with, you know, things, and you have to say, listen, I'm not going to talk about it unless they're in the room.
Yeah, no, and I fully agree with you that is still part of dynamics, office dynamics everywhere, I think. And what I always try to say is there are generally no bad intentions, meaning that if you have a conflict with another team, another business unit, and you think, oh, they're not doing their job, that's probably not true. Very likely, even that is not true.
Right.
You don't understand their objectives. You don't understand, you see, what their focus is. So until you can put yourself really into their shoes, you shouldn't be making these claims or statements, right? So just talk to each other and figure out what's important for that other team, what's important for us, and how do you solve for that tension that apparently is there. And so, yeah, like the gossiping is very real, throwing out statements that are not justified or just based on a couple of things people see, but not really on the full context. And so as a leader, being aware of that, I believe, is important. When you see that happening, and then addressing it as fast as you can to just bring those things together so that the conflicts don't grow out into something that is really very dysfunctional for both sides.
You also mentioned there is good politics and bad politics. So you have office politics. You're always going to have office politics. We were having a small talk. I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, my recommendation would be, or my advice to people would be, you have politics everywhere. Wherever country you are in the world, wherever company you are in the world, there's always some kind of politics. And you have good politics and bad politics. And with bad politics, I mean those people who are trying to get ahead by throwing other people under the bus, by not lying but masking the truth. You see, but not being very collaborative. And if you participate into those bad politics, it may short term give you a benefit. You may get ahead, but generally karma, you see, catches up.
Yes.
Catches up, and a couple of years down the road, the people who were disadvantaged will remember you participated into that. You see, and it catches up. So my advice is really don't participate in the bad politics, even if you see it happening around you. It can be omnipresent in a company as well, but then you probably want to ask yourself, do I really want to be part of this company? If this is the way to go ahead, I think it's really very important to stay true to yourself. Because if you start participating into these dynamics, I don't think it's healthy, plus I don't think it guarantees long-term success. It hits you in the future. Good politics for me is all about building a network. I think that is so important. And that's important internally in a company, but also externally in a company. Internally, And how you build that network is by doing a good job, by making sure you don't stay in the same role forever, move around or participate into projects to, not only grow your skills, but also grow the people you work, the network of people you work with, so that they remember you, think about you for the next job opportunity. So I think that is, so the good politics are very important, but stay away from the bad politics. That would be key advice.
Yeah. Another thing which I always talk about is that really know where your influence is and where your power is. So really know the difference between influence and power, because there's some situation if you're a data leader or an AI leader or any functional leader, you will have situation where you can have influence, and there will be situation where you have the power. So first of all is that identify where that is. I also will work with, when I'm working with some of the C-suite leaders or senior leaders, I would say to them, is that also drop the influence map. Know who has the influence, and especially when you're working in a large organization, you have 15 CDOs, and you are trying to have all these different groups, and you're working with all these data owners. So really understand where the influence is and where you have the power. So on a map, you can actually color code it or assign the power of the influence and understand how you need to play your cards.
Yeah.
It's good to be strategic. Understand how you're going to navigate these waters, which are going to be complicated. It's not going to be straight and simple.
No, you're very right. I actually didn't think about that yet, but yes, you're very right. That's knowing those politics, understanding, who is a decision maker, who is an influencer, talking to those people who can influence a decision maker. That's also very important to, particularly when you really want to drive a big change, right? When you really want to have an impact on something bigger. Yeah, that is also very important. Yeah.
One thing which struck out when you were talking about the change, you said you moved the countries, but you stayed in the same job. But also, a lot of time you get restless, even if you're in the same company, and you land up moving into a cross-functional team. You can go from finance to technology to another functional area. And I know that you've kind of moved within the organization. Even though the company was the same, your role changed over time. And it also helps because your intellectual curiosity gets fed by changing the role and challenging yourself. But initially, the thought of change is not comforting. It's like either changing the country, changing your functions, changing the roles. Even if you're climbing up, there's always a fear, will I succeed? Or the fear of failure. I would love I've had in my career, Tina, every time I transition, it was an uneasy time. And I would say, oh my God, I'm having a mid-age crisis. And it was more the uneasiness of the change that I went through. And I'll share with you that every time I changed, I was nervous. But I think what helped me was the passion. I want to go back to what you said originally. For me, that helped was that I knew that what I was going to do was going to excite me. It will continue challenging me intellectually. And that was really important for me, that intellectually I was challenged in the job I was taking or moving into. And I would find fun in that, and I would find comfort to change. Otherwise it gets really scary if you don't have the passion, if you don't know what you're getting into. So for me, that helped me. Talk to me about the change and how you navigated the change in your career.
Yeah, no, I can talk about a couple of changes, right? So when I started with MasterCard, I started in the finance department, and I did a couple of roles within finance. But then after 8 years, I had this curiosity where I said, look, I understand our financial, I understand our revenues, our expenses and everything else. But when you're in payments, there's this very particular business model which we call economics, customer economics, which include pricing, but also interchange. And it's like at the time, after those 8 years in finance, I still found that intellectually very complex. And I said, I want to understand this. I really want to understand how this business model works and how it is leveraged, to drive change in the ecosystem and so on. And so I just took a role in that team. I said, look, there's an open position. I'm going to jump in there. I knew it was a challenge. It was a bit of a risk for me. But I had my entire analytical background. I knew I could leverage. I had my knowledge about our P&L. So it was being aware of what you're good at, what you can actually bring to that change, bring to that role, and hence finding some confidence in yourself to take on this new challenge. And then to your point, the first 6 months are brutal, right? Especially when you make a bit of a brutal change, right? The first 6 months, and being aware, okay, look, I'm going to invest all my time in learning like as quickly as I can what it is that I need to do to be good in this role, not beat yourself up if you're not booking the success in the first 3 months. I think that's impossible, right? I think one of our leaders at MasterCard, and she once talked about where she said, look, the first year is about learning and growing. The second year is when you add value. The third year is when you start looking for your next challenge, right? And so that was a helpful framework, right? And so knowing that that first year is tough, but giving it your all, investing in that in that time is what I did, right? And so then I spent 4 or 5 years into that area, customer economics, and that's when the question came, hey, Tina, are you interested to go back to finance, but in the US, right? So, and that was, oh, okay, this is another angle that may be scary. Went back to my, let's say, comfort zone, but okay, it was a very different area in finance, but okay, back into my finance area, which I knew, which I was very familiar of, but dealing with this entire international move, right? Also building a new network in another location in our company. That was then the big challenge I had to deal with. But again, making sure I spoke with a lot of people, right? I think, how do you gain that confidence? You don't have to figure out everything by yourself, right? When in this particular case, this international move, I spoke with people who had done it before me. And it's okay, what do I need to be prepared for? How do I convince my husband to follow me? Right? So how you see how do I need to make sure the kids are comfortable with this move? So that helps you to build confidence, right? And I never had like one dedicated mentor in my life because I don't think anyone is perfect. But whenever I have a challenge, whether it's a career challenge or this international move, I would try and find the people who had done it before me, who I think succeeded, and just learn and from all the tips they could give me. And then like you almost make this, you're almost like you're ready to deal with the tough times, right? When you are then making that change. So that's how I generally did these things. So yeah, and then after moving to the US back in finance, but now indeed I moved into the business. I moved into our product development area, which is called Consumer Solutions at MasterCard, where I now support many of the business units, whether it's our issuing solutions or acceptance solutions, but with all kinds of, I won't go into the details because I'm sure that would bore anyone who's listening, but that's.
But what I hear from you is that change is essential. No matter what change is going to happen, how you deal with change is going to be what defines you as a person and a professional. What I also heard from you is that there is no work and life balance, but you can have it all. I mean, both of us have family, we have kids, we have, a spouse. We make sure that we are taking care of our family and we're taking care of our work. So a lot of especially the women leaders who are listening to us, I teach at Columbia, and I would go at Columbia Business School. The executive MBA students will ask me generally, and women will come up to me and say, can you really have it all? We are in our early 30s, and we worry about, managing and juggling it all. And I always say you can. It's how you prioritize. Sometimes you might have to pay a lot of attention to your work, and sometimes you have to pay attention to the kids. But you have to learn to navigate and also delegate. I also feel like for me, I could really manage it because I had family support. I could get some help, so figure out who's going to be your support system. I have another dear friend who's a senior C-suite leader in a healthcare system. She didn't have family around, so she actually bonded with the parents in the school, and then they chipped in and they said, okay, I'll take your kids on these days, and my husband will take. So the people took days. It's only 1 day a week they were going to drop the kids. So there's a lot of ways you can manage your life and have it all if you can delegate and navigate.
I fully agree. Yeah,
closing,
fully.
yeah.
So
The
I
only
wanted
thing
to
I was
jump on
gonna
this
say,
one. I wanted to
yeah, go
jump
ahead,
on this one
go ahead,
because
go
I'm
ahead.
also really passionate about this one, because I went through the same mental struggle, right? Like when my kids were 4 and 6 years old, probably something around, when I felt, oh, this is impossible. You see, like I have to choose. I thought I can't have it all. I can't do both the career and the family. So maybe I should pause the career. But then listening to our CFO at the time, who is female, right? So now I have a new CFO, but Martina at the time, she came to talk at one of the events, and we asked her the question, how did you do it? And she had, well, by now they're probably older, but I think at that time her kids were teenagers, and she explained her journey of how she did it. And what my key takeaway was that I was trying to bend myself in 50 different ways and to be a good mom and to be a good person at MasterCard. And I realized instead of doing that, so I realized I can bend how my family and my work to make it work for me. So to your point, what you said, like bending your personal circumstances, okay, I finally decided to outsource the stuff that I really didn't like. You see, and I could afford then getting support, like for cleaning, all these kind of things. But at work, I also said, hey, 3 days out of 5, I'm not sticking around until 7, 8. I'm going home between 5 and 6 because I want to spend time with the kids. The other 2 days, I'm here, I'm flexible. And I was lucky that I had a very supportive manager who said, yeah, we'll see how it goes. It wasn't a problem at all. Maybe 5 times a year, I would have to figure out and give up my personal day and switch it with another day, right? So I had a very supportive manager, but also a very supportive husband, right, who helped. So I'm lucky I also don't want to make it sound way too easy, right? So a very supportive husband who realized he's also working. He's not a stay-at-home dad, but he realized, okay, yes, he helps me find these solutions at home. How do we deal with it? And what I'm personally, it's still sometimes we still have our challenge, but what I'm happy about is I also wanted to be an example for my kids. I wanted to show, like, look, hey, it's okay that mom is working, right? And now my kids are also interested in what I do. We talk about about my job, what the challenges that I sometimes have, or if I'm cranky when I get home, I just tell them why, right? I had a bad meeting. This is what happened, and so I'm actually really happy that I went through that phase, changed. You see how I was living my life and how I was being a mom and how I was at work, so that where we are now is actually nice, and the kids see that it's okay that mom is working and they're proud of me. Yeah, they're proud of what I'm doing. Yeah.
I have to say that I'm on the other end, Tina, where my kids are grown up, and they give me the feedback. And when I was smiling the other day because both my kids are older and they're now in the phase where they're looking for their partners. And one of my sons said, he said, Mom, I want someone who's equal, who's independent, who's working, who is a whole person. So when I am coming home, there is an interesting discussion. And I was like smiling to myself. I said, oh my God, this is what I created, right? Because they now appreciate intelligent women. They appreciate women who are working and have a mind of their own. And I think that's what we are doing, right? By showing that you can have your own individuality and have your own career, we are bringing up kids who will accept that and respect that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, indeed. And that just don't even challenge it. That just consider it normal, right?
Yes.
That's both
They
women.
expect that that's what it should be. So
Exactly.
I was smiling on that. So as we close the segment, just younger self, all the listeners who are listening, what would be one thing which you would say they should and must, as they're climbing the leadership journey? What should they be thinking? I'm sure there are 10 things, but what would be the highlight? What comes to your mind immediately? What would you close this segment with?
Yeah, for me, it's like the key statement that I would make is like, or the key takeaway that I want people to have is like, find passion in what you do, so that work doesn't feel like work. So it really is a part of you, right? And that it's something that you like doing. And the reason why I say that is because you see that in people. You can see it in the workspace. When people have that passion, it brings a drive. that allows you to be successful, and that large organizations appreciate, and they look for these people to grow the ladder, right, and to be the inspirational leaders that they can be. So find passion in what you do. Don't consider work just, I don't like to say work-life balance because it makes work sound bad.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be, right? It is, you can have it all, right? Just like we said before. Yeah.
Right. You know what, and in a closing, I would say that what I learned from you, you said, you came here, having a strong support system, having a network is really important. And I remember talking to you early on when you joined WLDA, is that the network is what you were looking for. You were looking for people who you could connect with, who understood you. A lot of times I would meet women, and I was in that boat where I felt alone. When you are in a large organization, you're at a senior level, there are not too many people you can talk to who look like you, who have the same life situation. When you go home, sometimes your family might not understand you, or you go have friends who are not in your profession, they might not get you. So that's why I feel like this Women Leaders in Data and AI, WLDA, we call it, is a great community where I personally feel that I found new friends. I found friends who get me and who understand me, and I can have this support system, my cheerleaders who, when I'm down, they'll pick me up, and I can learn from cross industry. So I feel like it's a great community. And the three tenets which we really, really focus on, and my effort is that we continue focusing on that, is first is the community. Second is personal and professional growth. That's really important, that you always are investing. So through our tech talks or LinkedIn Lives or Candid Conversation or WLDA Summit or WLDA Leadership Forum, which we just had in Florida, which was like amazing. And we spent so much time learning there, or celebrating at WLDA Gala. I think that's such an important investment in yourself. And lastly, impact. We constantly have these events where we are paying forward. I mean, what you're doing, Tina, today to share your knowledge, because you know that somebody here who's listening to us, hopefully will change somebody's, even a little bit, tiny little impact would be a great thing to pay back. And I think that's what this community is all about. Anyone who's interested in learning about WLDA, I'm happy to share or reach out to Tina or me, and we'd be happy to talk about that. I want to share real quickly, and I'm sure Denise will also share. We have 3 upcoming events. We will be here on LinkedIn Live on Friday, May 12th, talking about the topic, which is generative AI, ChatGPT, and how it works. We'll also talk about WLDA Corner, which is actually, if you guys are in transition and you're looking for, really, we're doing group coaching where we will have people who are in transition, who are just laid off, or you're looking to move into a new career. We are bringing in WLDA members who already are in the job and in position to really create this networking place where you can come in and actually meet with the WLDA members. So if you are interested, that will be an amazing event to come to, May 17th. And if you don't have the link, send me a quick note. I will make sure somebody sends you the invitation so you can join that session. And then is May 19th, which is, again, every Friday at 12 p.m., we are having the WLDA Corner, where we will be talking either about the technology or leadership skills. With that, thank you so very much. I hope to see you next week. Thank you. Thank you, Tina, for being here. I enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it too. Thanks, Sasha.
Bye-bye.